We all go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Potty Mouth. We have been away for a week. Have you missed us? Yes. So we're back. So we're going to do a little bit of housework first before we get into it. Don't forget our Discord. Yes, we're still there, and like I say, we've been off for a week, and that's buzzing there. There's links in the kind of description as well, so please pop over to do that. Questions now. I have got some topics, and I should have done a lot of topics before the actual show, but I haven't. So, capital Q, then type your question, and I'll be able to find that, and that will be fantastic. There we go. Look, he's just sat down. He looks like he hasn't
What do you mean? I've been in for ages.
So, how is everyone? Stephen, nice to have you here, sir. Thank you very much for turning up. Are you good?
You're very welcome.
Look at that, 11 degrees in Cockermouth, hotter than us still.
Oh God, weird, eh?
The growing season's here, Stephen, isn't it? It's all guns blazing now.
Well, if you listen to some people, I guess it is. Some people said today that there's no more frost.
Oh, no more frost.
It's all done.
Oh no,
yeah. I don't know who that was.
I wonder who that was. Look at the big yes. I just was it. Maybe on record, the 17th of April, and he's sticking to his guns. He says there's no,
I think so.
No more frosts.
I'm hedging my bets. No more frosts on the south coast.
If there's no more frosts, then JB, why didn't you take them chilies up to the allotment then? Because you were all gun sure this morning.
I know. I think I'm going to do it tomorrow. I think I'm going to put the peppers in the greenhouse.
So are you going to put them all of them in? JB, are you going for all of them?
Oh, yeah, man. I think so.
Because I'm going to hedge me bet, and I'm going to put probably one in. When the day you put one in, or all of them, I'm going to sneak one in. See,
I've had a couple in there for about a week, and they look fine.
And what was the lowest temperature it got down to? You think?
Got down to about 5, and they were fine. They were fine. So,
do they still look all right? Or do they look a little bit?
Yeah, no, they look really healthy. Really healthy.
Sophie, nice to have you on as well. Thank you so much again. Yeah. Thank you. Looking lovely.
Worries.
How's the allotment?
Yeah, good. I made a start today. Or I say made a start. Rolled back the plastic, sort of de-weeded, just prep for tomorrow. So basically I've got the week off to actually get some beds done. So it's just prep works at the moment. So
when you mentioned like the plastic, did you put the plastic on earlier, when you first rocked up there? So this is how long's it been on then? About 3 months, something like that? Just any time.
About five months, sorry. I was working it out. About 5 months.
We are live.
5 months?
Yeah, 5. Right.
A while, basically.
And did you say it was all died back? Everything died back?
All died back. Not a blade of grass, nothing. Not a weed in sight. It's just pure soil. So, yeah.
One of our topics there, because you mentioned Soph, and it was like, and I think it was JB was one of the kind of instigators when the word rotavator was mentioned. Yes. JB nearly spat his tea out and what bloody rotavators. So we'll just get the picture going first. Mm-hmm. You're going to rotivate, I guess, Sophie. Then this little bit, this big bit of plastic that's been on, you want to rotivate that to kind of just get it all ready to plant.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And sort of, I've been obviously speaking to my plot neighbour because he helps me quite a bit, and he's sort of suggested rotavating. So I know it's bad for the soil.
I say he got the big one. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Put a little cordless one.
Right. You've only got the little cordless one. I know that. You mentioned that. So JB, why did you get on your high horse about a rotavator?
Oh, I didn't get on my high. I said it's controversial. It's a bit controversial these days. And I said we might have an active discussion in the chat about rotavating because it's kind of fallen out of favor now, I think. No dig is a lot more common. And people have had a lot of bad experiences with rotavating. I think there's a few ways that it can go wrong. And the most common thing that you see is if you've got perennial weeds that are rhizominous, so that spread by their root. And if you run a rotavator through it, you just chop all those roots into thousands of pieces, scatter them all over your pot, and make the problem much, much worse. So I think there probably is still a place for rotavating and cultivating a large area of allotment. You just got to make sure you do it right. And you might
Well, I
want to do a
know-
little bit of research first.
I know, JB, that my next door neighbour has his a rotavator, and he rotavates like so the one down from me, but his land is, there's no weed, or there's like the odd dandelion will come or something like that through the window, so he just rotavates the whole lot. And to be honest, the finish a rotavator gives you looks lovely, but that to me, from my point of view, is just like it's hard work. Like. I'm guessing now I'm kind of saying 90% no dig because I did dig the potatoes in, but it's just like it's more work. Where if it's no dig, you just leave it. You know what I mean? You just put a bit of compost on it. Yeah, that's the work, and then that's it. So for me, it's it's another step. So
yeah.
Soph, will you still get the rotavator going and get it done, or?
Yes. Yes. I thank you for all your advice and opinions, but yes. So I'm kind of torn about it.
JB, terrible. The attitude was terrible. These tree hookers, you know what I mean?
I am in two minds about it because I fully understand with the no dig. Obviously, once you start rotavating, that can disturb the soil sort of like natural. I always forget the word. Like natural soil life cycle, I guess, of everything that's living in there can kill it off for a while, and then that can have an effect on your harvest or how your plants grow. But it does recover after a little while, so I'm kind of bearing that in mind. And I just have so much space, and the cost of compost at the moment, it's not feasible for me.
But just from another point of view, then, so if it's lovely, just no weeds there now, why not just kind of dig in a few? Cabbages and all that, and all like what Charlie Dowden says is like puts the marrows over and the courgettes to kind of, and the pumpkins to block it all out. Could you not just fill it with that?
I guess I could. I guess that's actually one thing I thought about today. I looked at it and I was like, what do I do now? I just thought rotavating was the next step because it's kind of like, because it's quite compacted where it's been sat for so long and it's just flat and smooth. Whereas everyone else that's got a growing space, it all looks churned up and tilted. And so I'm sort of thinking, how do I get to that next step of getting that? Because if I planted it at the moment, it's just flat and just really congealed down, if that makes sense.
So, you know what the best thing to do is? We should ask the Grandmaster.
Yes.
Yes. What does the old boy think?
Well, rotavating sort of comes into two camps, and this is where many of the problems are set in. A rotavator will rotivate your soil and a cultivator will cultivate. The difference between them is a cultivator, you won't see those blades spinning round at all. It's that fast. And they're the dodgy ones. They're the ones that cut the weed roots up. If you've got a rotavator, it will go at this sort of a speed. Mm-hmm. It's really quite slow. And the moment you hit a root, it will bring it up to the surface on its next pass and you can pick it out before it breaks. That's the difference. And that's where a lot of the problems come on, is people don't know the difference between a rotavator and a cultivator. If, like your neighbour, I think his name's Billy, Tony, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. I think for your guy there, he could probably get away with cultivating it because his land is clear. He's cleared it over the years, and he could cultivate it down to a nice fine tilth, rake it off, and sow seeds in there. It'd be absolutely perfect. The other thing I suspect that Sophie has got a cultivator because it's a chargeable one. So your blades are going to be going at 19 to the dozen, and it won't make an impression on that soil that you've got that's hard, flat and compacted. Yeah. It will just skim across the surface a couple of millimeters deep, and that's about it. What yours needs is either the big rotavator of your neighbour's, and judging by the sound of the size of what you described before, his is a rotavator. Turn the soil over, and then you can either knock it down with a fork or knock it down with your cultivator, just being ever so careful that there are no roots in there. And that's where 90% of the problems come in. Yeah, your soil biology will get knocked back a little bit. Your mycorrhizal fungi will get destroyed for the depth that you're going to, but that will soon grow back. And if you're starting on a plot, you said yourself, Sophie, everybody else's soil is all nice and fluffy. They've spent time and years on it. And if you want to get to there faster, I would think that's a nice fast route for you to start. Break your soil down. Then you can decide, and as you can afford, to make each bed no dig as you go along. And that's probably the most sensible way I would think of doing it, apart from turning it over with a fork, all the back breaking stuff and breaking it up. But either way, I think you've really got to turn that soil over, let some air get into there and start breaking it down. Then you can use it for however you want to use it.
Well, I haven't seen your soil, Soph, but I was wondering, JB, you kind of lashed out, which is not, not like you to spend money there. You got the Wolf Garden spiky
Oh, the Miller.
cloth.
Yeah.
What is that? Would that be any good, Steve? Because I think you know what I'm on about. That it's an expensive thing that he got, but do you think that would work, or is that just kind of a bit femmer?
On your beds, Tony, it would work fine, but on Sophie's beds, from what she's described, no, it wouldn't have much of an impression at all. It would just scrape across the surface, and you're spending more effort trying to do something that it's not designed to do. So rotivate it at the start, get your soil going and working, and then you can start to build up the ecosystem again. Let the mycorrhizal get through the system again. But the thing is that you've got soil in there that will drain, and that's probably one of the most important things as well.
Have you still got it, JB? Have you still got that?
I have, yeah. I've been using it a bit. It's really good. On some of the beds where I've just put down a bit of kind of manure and mulch, it works in beautifully. It's really nice. It breaks up the manure. It doesn't go too deep. It's only about kind of 3 or 4 inches. So you're only just kind of tilling the top layer of the soil. It hose off all the weeds, incorporates the manure. I found it quite useful actually.
That's good.
Quite good.
So it sounds like then, so probably the best way to go is to, if you can borrow the neighbour's Rotavator and just get it rotated, do it this once, and then you kind of set, and then what Steve says, however much, just build your beds or go how much you can, because it is when you first start no dig, you just need compost, and
it's too expensive.
Yeah.
I've looked into it, but it's too much for me. And with this space that I've got, it'd take me too long. So it's just better to get started this way. And like Steve said, once then I get to a point, I can revert to no dig if I can and when I can.
Mine, I would even just plant, like, say, if you had like loads of seeds, just like grow as many, like say pumpkin-y things. Get your manure, just for manure sake, just grow all them plants and then get them into the compost bin for next year. Do you know what I mean? Because it sure breaks down. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah.
The thing is with pumpkins and marrows and things is the leaves, they've all got hollow stems. You don't actually get that much biomass. So the thing to do would be to buy some vetch and rye grass, a good mix of each, and plant that. You get an incredible amount of biomass. You can either dig it out and put it on your compost heap or just dig it back into your soil.
Okay. Oh, look at that. Yeah.
Some top questions, top answers as well. You know what I mean? So JB, let's get back onto these frost dates, and because this is because this year is the one where I'm able to say I don't have to. Do you know what I mean? I'm always keen with the hut to get them up there and get, you know what I mean? But I'm thinking, but then you've just said that, and I'm thinking, oh, right, what? So I was, to be honest, I was quite shocked that you're prepared to take them all up as well.
Well, I'm dying to get them out. Mainly, you can see the grow light is still on at the moment, and it just feels wrong. It just, we don't have solar power here, and I wish I had some solar panels or something. But it just feels wasteful having them on when there are just so many gorgeous days at the moment. And I checked the forecast, and we've got the next 2-week forecast. The lows on the south coast are 7 degrees. And generally it's trending towards 8 or 9. The daytime temperatures are only getting up to about 13, but all you need is a little bit of sun to warm up the greenhouse, and the greenhouse will be roasting, so that'll be fine for them. It's really the nighttime temperatures. There's no forecast into May, but it's very rare. Touch wood. It is very rare for us to get late frosts on the south coast. So I think I'm going to do it.
Do you have a stall temperature with chilies? I know with tomatoes, once they get down to sort of 8, 9, 10 degrees, tomatoes can actually stall and stop growing. Do you have one of them with chilies? It's the same, is it?
So you do have to be careful because you can definitely knock them, you can stall them. They can take a little bit of time getting back up to speed.
Right.
But I think you can be a little bit too precious with them sometimes, and generally I've always chanced it a little bit. There has been some cold nighttime temperatures and they're okay. They're okay. The other reason I was thinking about doing it within the next few days is because we've got loads of overcast weather, which is also why the nights are still quite warm. But that's really good to kind of naturally harden off your peppers. If you put them from nice shady indoors or just grow lights into kind of mid-May bright sunshine, you might be dealing with things like sun scorch and that kind of thing. But if you've got naturally kind of overcast, a little bit of sun, a little bit of shade, it will naturally just kind of harden them off. So it feels right. I've spoken to a few other chili growers as well, and they're doing the same. So I'm not on my own, but we'll see.
Well, begging emails more like it. What do I do? What do I do? Help!
I know, like JB's doing like the chilies, Steve. Would you be prepared to take your tomatoes up to your polytunnels now, or some of them?
No, because I mean, JB. Let's be fair and honest about this. JB's on the south coast and gets much better temperatures than we do up north. And I won't take my tomatoes or my chilies or my peppers or aubergines. I won't take any of that down until towards the end of the May earliest. And what I'll be looking for is the 2-week forecast where all the temperatures are above 7 or 8 degrees. I just won't chance it. And they'll go down into the polytunnel, into one of my hot boxes. And if necessary, I'm ready with fleece to throw them over the top. Or if a late frost is forecast, 10 o'clock at night, you're watching the news and the weather's changed, I'll go down and get them.
Am I right in thinking, did you say the end of May there? You'll not take them down till the end of May or end of April?
No, the end of May.
Right.
I don't want them to take a knock. I mean, everything I do.
I think JB's jumping. I think JB's a little bit worried now.
No, well, he's a lot warmer down there. He's a lot warmer down there. So, and he gets those nice temperatures. I just don't get them here. I've had a frost here in June. Mm-hmm. I've had that.
If that happens, that happens. That's life. I think if you get a late frost like that, you know what I mean. But I remember we talked about this before, Steve, where Glenn was heavily feeding his with the kind of, I forget what, the master blend. And he was in low temperatures, but he had them, he had fruit and chilies in April. You know what I mean? Kind of. So we'll just wait and see. I might take a couple up just to kind of be with, JB in spirit there. You know what I mean? Would you, JB?
Miss out.
Would you just take them in like the kind of the mushroom baskets and then just, whip them back if you knew there was going to be a cold night?
Yeah. So that is one thing I'm not doing is putting them into bigger pots yet. I'm not going to pot them on until, that frost risk is definitely past. According to the data, our last frost date is the 11th of April on average. So we're kind of past it, but I don't quite trust that. So I'll be watching the forecast. I'm keeping them in relatively small pots so that they can all come back in one trip in the car if needs be.
It's I think what's wise though as well, JB, is like you say, is that kind of hardening off, because the last thing you want is heavy sun blasting them, and the other way like they're failing as well. So we will see. These kids jumping the gun. It's exciting. Me once. Right, let's have a look. Job 88 asking JB, what is the girth of JB's dibber from yesterday? Now, I haven't seen this, Jobo, so
you haven't seen JB's dibber?
What is happening?
This is just from a really stupid offhand comment I made as I was potting up some seeds. I mentioned something about if you've got a big dibber. And I made myself laugh. And every comment on that video is just about the size of people's dimmers.
Brilliant.
Well, I've got one for myself as well, JB. Here, Barry Sterling saying, so far in the last few videos, Tony we found out he's an arsonist and he can't chip potatoes. Should someone take away his gardening certificates? You know what I mean? So, yes, yes, take them away. Right, let's have a look. Lance, some serious questions. Lance Hayes is saying, I'm planning on growing comfrey bocking in an area where I'll be burying cat poo. Where I'll be burying cat poo and then using the leaves for compost and mulch. Is this safe?
Yeah.
Did I read that right?
Poo toxic.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Avoid getting toxic. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, I thought that you get that from cat feces, don't you? I would have thought.
Yeah.
I'm guessing. I think.
Yeah, I would imagine it's not safe. I don't know.
I just wouldn't.
But that doesn't sound.
I must admit, I wouldn't let it concern me because at the end of the day, I'm growing a comfrey which is dragging nutrients up from 30 foot below. And I've got a big patch of comfrey on my plot. All right, see you, so fine.
Bye.
Sorry so much.
Take care. Nice seeing you.
That's amazing.
I didn't realise this is me. This is going to get Loki kind of all stressed again as well. I've got that guess 5. You're not even guessing.
Yeah, I'd let that comfrey carry on growing because at the end of the day, I'm going to cut it all down and I'm then going to stew it and ferment it in a barrel before I even get to dilute it and put it into feed and then put it onto the plants and the plants take what it wants from that soil. And I'm also bearing in mind that every other animal or beastie in the area is also using my soil as a toilet anyway. So I wouldn't be worried about cat poo on a comfrey patch.
Yeah, I think
that's my own personal point of view.
The main thing that jumped out is that, like you say, comfrey is doing all its work really deep down in the soil. So there's probably very little of that cat poo as it degrades that actually goes into the comfrey, right?
And I think it does degrade in a couple of weeks, cat poo. Anyway, I'm sure I read that somewhere.
It's the thought, though, isn't it? It's the thought more than anything.
Well, if you thought about it, I mean, you get a little teaspoon of soil. There's something like 1 billion microbes in that, and they're all going to the toilets.
Let's ask you. Let's ask you this question then. The three is. I'll go around the three. Sophie, I'll ask you this for you first. I used to work in the Northumbrian Water. I used to work on the sewage department side. We used to have drying beds where all the digested poo and all that would settle out. Tomatoes would grow.
Yeah.
Tomatoes would grow and would get lovely red tomatoes. Now, if I give you one of them red tomatoes, knowing where it's been, would you eat it?
Oh, no, because it's a poo tomato. No.
You see, look at the old fella starting. His face is cringing up there as well.
Imagine put that in a supermarket.
I mean,
I would eat it.
Lovely red tomatoes, don't get us wrong, but they've been through the digestive system, and then they've been in a big concrete block of everyone's.
What's the difference?
It's
just the fact that somebody said poo, and now everyone, you might as well say boo. Everyone's scared now.
Let's ask.
But it's human feces, though. It's kind of different from animal. Like I know I've seen what people consume. Like not just through food, but like other habits as well. You think that probably all comes out as a toxin at some point.
But it's gone through what we call a digestion system. So it's been heated. It's heated itself up. And actually, you know what I mean? So it's killed all germs, but it's still on these drying beds. It's a matter, and it looks like compost, but it doesn't. Yeah. It has got its own certain smell, I'll be honest with you. But lovely tomatoes. Tomatoes were the only thing, like a vegetable, the seed would just grow in abundance, and there'll be tomatoes, thousands of tomatoes on these drying beds. JB, if I offered you one on a plate with a little bit of sprinkle of salt,
it's just tomatoes, no sweet corn.
There's no sweet corn, just tomatoes. A little bit of olive oil, and a little bit of maybe that's a little thread dressing of basil and some salt and pepper. Would you wolf that down?
If you could guarantee it was genuinely safe, which it sounds like maybe I was pulling the face earlier because it sounded like it was a bit earlier on in the process. But if it is once it's gone through, all the digestion and all the harmful stuff has gone, then yeah, I would.
Right. Oh, lovely.
If it's food safe.
I'll get the lads to send some round for you. You know what I mean? We'll get them done off the beds. You know what I mean? We'll do it on video. If you want to either eat a chili, JB, or a tomato, which one?
It is just that yuck factor because it's human poo. That's all it is. But as I say, there's billions and billions of animals using your beds and your pots and your soil, using it as a toilet. All kinds, could be badgers or foxes or rabbits or anything. It all goes in there. We'll all take chicken poo from chicken keepers and put it on our compost heap. It's full of it.
The amount of puns in the chat.
Lance didn't realise the depth we were going to start talking about there. You know what I mean? So, right. I just want to mention while I kind of remember on, this is the last time tonight to get your 15% off Grown Local. Grown Local is a good sponsor of the show there, and get your seeds there now because there's some cracking tomatoes, but there's some actually new ones as well. And that's the one. I like that picture, Steve. You can see there the tomato, the rose crush. That's the one. Hopefully, we're going to get tomatoes like that this season as well. But
it'd be lovely, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I know. God, aye. Ian said it's the last night for the 15%. But there's also the grow kits as well, and you can mix and match. So if you went on the actual grow kits, let's see if that'll take you there. It'll you can actually mix them up and different seeds. So you can actually choose your different seeds as well. If you bought
is that because he's doing 20% next week?
Yes, I love that's a good one. It's just now as well with microgreens. It's what and Ian mentioned a kind of great thing. It's that kind of I'm getting sprouting broccoli, but that's one of the only things I'm kind of getting. So microgreens are that nice little way of that hunger gap to kind of fill it as well. So
brilliant.
Yes.
Brilliant. And they taste so good as well, especially if you've got a mix of them on the plate. Every forkful is different.
We had them tonight. We had microgreens in our salad there, grown by my good self as well. So
nice.
While we're on talking then, what was that, Stephen?
I said in poo or compost.
Yes. Something kind of happened while we were off, and again, let me just put you onto there. Can we talk about this? So,
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Look at the actual figure. I don't know if anyone knows about it. This lady Carly, she has multiple sclerosis, and I think if I've got the story right, she grows on an allotment to kind of give food out to other folks. And some thugs, some vandals kind of put salt on her allotment. She put up a GoFundMe, and it was going stupid over a couple of days, but it seems to have died off a bit. £246,000. And to be honest, I was a little bit kind of suspect at first when I seen this kind of price going up, but. What I didn't realise, and I kind of realised after the thing, if you have a look on it, she only wanted, 4,000, So that was our goal. And so, if you're going to kind of, scam folks or anything like that, I would ask for a bit more than $4,000. But, you know what I mean? It's like, to get that amount, 246.
I think isn't she planning to use that to gain more plots or growing areas in other areas so she can help more people now?
Right. Is that what you've heard then, Steve? Is it? Because that would be
I read it somewhere. I'm not sure where, because I was looking on both on there and her Instagram page or wherever it was. I can't remember now, but she's going to use it to, subsidise other plots somewhere and get more people who are struggling fed, which is, it's brilliant, isn't it? Absolutely brilliant.
Oh, I know. I'd like to see if you can kind of, send it out to other folks as well. But just a figure you wouldn't dream of, you know what I mean? When I kind of see, and I seen it pretty early on, you know what I mean? I think, JB, you put the link in our WhatsApp saying, look, keep an eye on this. And then it just when it hit 60,000, you were thinking,
Yeah. Because we saw it quite early on. So that GoFundMe is actually an old one. So she's been trying to raise money for quite a long time. And she didn't even post it as a, oh my God, this has happened, please donate. That GoFundMe was set up quite a long time ago. She used to put all the money into the plot, and then the excess, she was basically running her own food bank. And it was all pretty transparent. So she posted like receipts on Facebook of what she was buying and like delivering to people in need. And because it was still there, kind of. It got tweeted out, and then people like Gary Lineker were retweeting it, and it just went crazy in a few hours. Because we were all talking about it and thinking, maybe we should, try and drum up a bit of support. I had some work calls, and then 3 hours later, it was starting to hit the double figures, and I was just like, I don't think we'll need to, to actually try and raise any awareness about this.
I mean, even someone's there 2 hours ago, so there's still, still popping in there, and £200 there and £20. It's just
the thing that's got me about it is the generosity of people right now. While everybody is struggling, there aren't many groups of people out there who aren't affected by this cost of living crisis. And some people have actually forking out hundreds of pounds extra. Well, you can still raise that amount of money to help other people who are struggling. I think is brilliant. Really good.
Definitely.
No, definitely. I mean, like you say, once like Gary Lineker, kicked in, because he, in his comments, with the football, like all that, there was a lot of support for him, and now, what I mean, it's just kind of a knock-on effect. But that's just, it's exactly what you said, Steve. If she's going to do that, what I mean, that's just a, like a win-win for so many people. What I was going to ask though, what does actually salt do? Because it sounded like they had to just move all that earth away or something. Or is it gone for good, that soil?
Well, my understanding of using salt, and I've tried it as a natural cure. I tried it a few years ago for mare's tail. Mare's tail is a complete nightmare to get rid of completely. And somebody told me that use salt and it will go. Well, I tried it for 3 years. It hasn't gone, but it did kill the plants. But it's no good it being just on the soil. This is what I was told. It needs to be on the plant itself. So you wet the plant and then you sprinkle the salt on. It stays on the plant. And what it does from there is a chemistry person's explanation. I've no idea what it does from there, but the plants don't like it.
I'm fairly sure. I think it has it sucks the moisture out of things, essentially, right? And I imagine when it works up into the soil and you get a salinity build up in the soil, does the same things to the roots, right? And it prevents roots from taking up water and nutrients and all that kind of thing. I'm kind of guessing though. I'm not 100% sure. There are certain plants that are tolerant for it, of course, on beaches and on the roadside as well.
I would think within about 2 years that soil would be okay to use anyway, simply for the fact that it's going to rain, it's going to get washed through. And I know this from doing altering my soil for the pH with lime, and then roughly every 2 years I have to do it again to get the levels back up, because all the lime is washed away through the soil and out. So then you have to reapply it. So I reckon 2 years that plot will be fully usable again.
Yeah, I think for her, and like for anyone who has kind of like vandalism or anything like that happen to your plot, it's just the mental knock of it, isn't it? And like, what if it happens again? And you don't really feel safe there. You lose your kind of your emotional connection to that place, right? Like, it's what
I find like really kind of damaging, or like really nasty, is we get vandals and it's like the hood break-ins, the tools pinched. Do you know what I mean? That is just like 99%. But someone has come along and put salt on our ground. This is like a weird different level. This is like, I know the kind of criminal getting your kind of hood broken into, but this is like almost like premeditated to damage that particular plot. You know what I mean? To upset and spoil her kind of lifestyle.
I think the worst thing was that she had actually got stuff in the ground as well. So all her potatoes and onions and things were planted as well. So, all that crop's now wasted. If it had been done a couple of weeks earlier, maybe she could have planted that somewhere else. But now, buggers.
Well, I mean, that's, it's a nice consequence. That's what I mean? It's
exactly.
like to help with us as well. So that's just fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Hopefully something good comes of it, right?
Yeah. Right. JB, I think this one might be for you. Stephen Fox is saying he's got some seeds from a shop bought yellow pepper. They are just germinating. Am I likely to see fruit? I'm in South Yorkshire.
Short answer, yes, probably. But it's kind of it's like running the roulette, trying to grow seeds that are grown from a supermarket pepper or something, because you don't know what they're crossed with. You don't know if they were an F1 variety, so they just might come true to nothing. So you'll probably get something. It just might not be a yellow pepper. It might not taste very nice. The plant might grow a bit weird, especially if it's an F1 seed that the pepper came from. So it's worth a go as a little bit of fun. But if you really want to invest in a pepper and see it all the way through to the end, it's not the way to go. Not the recommended option, I don't think.
I mean, they're still selling them, like in garden centres now. So if you definitely want some kind of fruiting one, I suppose you could, get yourself. I was in this garden centre. We were talking about, Audrey was talking about grafting tomatoes and things like that. And I seen these like grafted tomatoes. This was in like I'm not saying like, well, I suppose it is. It's called Cowles, and it's a specialist nursery. The stock is just fantastic. Do you know what I mean? You kind of complain about it, but the price is a little bit. You pay for what you get. But these, I put 3 of these grafted tomatoes in my basket. You know what I mean? And I was walking around, and then I realised this. I mean, this. You know what I mean? But they were $5.99 each. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, for a tomato, and I just went. Even if I wanted to kind of just make a video on it, I'm not spending that kind of money on like 3 grafted tomatoes.
I was going to say, you've got 300 bloody tomatoes.
Exactly, Stephen. Why do I need them? Do you know what I mean? That's what I said as well. But $5.99. Do you know what I mean? And
no.
But it looked like there would be in other. It was one of them like grafted ones that looked like it could be in other garden centres as well, and the same price, because it was like all. It was all printed and labelled from this company. So, $5.99 for a grafted. And I don't think I've ever paid that. I know I've probably paid like £3 maybe in the past, but the price is, jumping up.
No.
Yeah, I'm guessing grafting must be quite labour intensive. A lot of fiddly work,
Not
grafting
really.
them and that kind of thing.
I was going to say, well, Audrey did it then and was quite happy with it, you know what I mean? So Steve's done it in the past.
It's just 2 cuts and putting a little clip in it. That's it. Job done. You cut your rootstock off one plant, cut your sign off the other, put them together, put the clip on, and you're doing another one.
Bob's your auntie's living lover, as they said up here. I always remember my mates saying that, you know what I mean? And Bob's your auntie's living lover. Right, John's asking, any tips for getting rid of broadleaf dock, nettles and bindweed? I'm on a green site, so no weed killer allowed. Steve, what do you think?
Dig it.
Physically dig it all out?
Dig it out, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Even bindweed, because you cannot cheat and just put cardboard down and then compost on top of
because it'll work its way to the edge, and especially with bindweed, you've got to get every last sort of inch piece out as well. You can't leave anything in because it'll just come back. But bindweed, dock, you've got to dig down for. Nettles, the roots spread everywhere, generally towards the surface, but then they can go deep as well. And if you leave a bit in, they'll come back. Leave a stand of nettles in the corner of your plot somewhere, because a lot of the moths and butterflies appreciate them. So leave some on your plot.
And what about, I guess bindweed not in your compost, but the others, can you dock nettles great for compost, am I right?
Well, what we used to do with them, nettles, you make nettle feed out of. I think JB was about to say there. Docks as well, just chop them up, put them in a bucket with water, stew them for 3-4 weeks, use this plant food. So you're actually killing, drowning the plants and part decaying it. You get a plant food from it, and then the dock can go in your compost heap. Just make sure it's got no seeds on the top.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Right. Let me just
I think
see.
with bindweed, I've got bindweed all throughout my plot, and I've just kind of acknowledged the fact that I'm just going to weaken it and probably pulling it up a little bit here and there for the rest of time.
JB. You've got meadows. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let me see if there's anything else. Tracksuit Dave's asking, Tony, have you got any arson convictions? You know what I mean?
Does he?
I'm trying to find normal questions here. Have I got anything? Oh, I'll tell you what I was going to, and I forget what it is, and I was going to have a picture of mine, but the worst bit of garden equipment you've ever had. Now, mine is somewhere on the plot, covered on one of the paths, covered up over like year after year of like compost and that. But it was that tool that you could tie a tomato plant to a cane. Remember the kind of, and it had like a bit of red tape, and and it's supposed to just like a loop, and honestly, some from Chinese kind of, you know what I mean? It was like terrible. Now I know Tony, Simplifying Garden, loved it, but it was just like you would like clip it, fire it, and it would just never, the staples would never staple to the plastic. They have this like double loop, so you had your tomato and your string going up. So that was my worst one. It was, I guess for one little hand tool, it was about nearly £30. So it was kind of up there being, you know, a little bit silly.
Quite dear.
So, but it's just lying, rusted up to hell and back now.
You sure it wasn't an operator error?
It could quite well have been. And to be honest, you know what I mean? Like I say, it was lying. I remember like in the compost beds, there's just like still this red tape going around. Do you know what I mean? Where I'm pulling out from, you know what I mean? What a kind of waste of time that was. So, JB, have you got any useless tools?
The thing that jumped to mind immediately as soon as you said it was those cheap plastic plant labels that you get. You know, the ones that you can almost see through. And they still sell them. Yeah. I saw that some in the garden centre today, and you see them in a pack. Maybe you're a beginner, you think, yeah, everyone uses plastic plant labels. Fine. It's not fine. It's so not fine. They just, as soon as they're in the sun for like a few weeks, you can pick them up and they just shatter into like hundreds of little pieces, and it still winds me up. It annoys me that they sell them.
Which garden labels are them ones? Are them like the thin?
Yeah, they're just the kind of long plastic ones. They're like the standard shape, but you get some that are they're super, super thin. And you can almost see through them. That's how you can kind of tell. Wilco sells some that are fine. They will go for like seasons and seasons. They've got kind of a ridge on the edge, little hole in the top. They're fine. They've been going for years. But those cheap plant labels. I'm still finding them in my soil.
I've got some. I've got some of my own printed.
Yeah.
I better make sure they're a little bit thicker the next time, or I'll be So, you know, with you kind of just starting, is there anything that you've kind of thought of, this is a total waste of time, what I've kind of invested in here?
Do you know what? It's a few, I'll choose two. So it's probably user error more than anything, but cheap clips to clip on when you're doing netting. If you do not invest in some that aren't going to disintegrate after 2 seconds, you're just going around picking them up, or if you try and take one off, they just ping off into the distance and the little metal bit comes out and they're just all over the place. Hate them. And then the other one is, so I made a video about this, so if anyone's watched it, I'm officially eating my hat, is soil blockers. And I think that's more user error because I haven't had time to play around with it. But now I'm doing sowing, I'm like, when am I going to get time to even do what's required of me to deal with that? I think that's more of a gimmicky thing.
I'm not. What's a soil blocker? Are you meaning making blocks out of?
So it's like a little contraption.
Planting cells.
Yeah, so those, you sort of like push it down into the soil. When it comes up, you get like these nice little formed square blocks that have a little divot in the top, ready to plant in. But that's fine. That sounds great, but you have to find the right recipe, the right consistency. If you don't get it right, it crumbles.
Yeah.
It's just, and I'm thinking, I ain't got time for that. I'm just going to stick it in a pot and off it goes.
Yeah.
It was just
The
pure
only place-
novelty.
Sorry. The only place I
That's
see soil blocks is Instagram. I've never seen an allotment YouTuber use them. There are probably some out there, but they just don't seem that practical. Because, like you say, if you don't get it perfectly right, it just falls apart.
It's not good. Yeah,
It's
it just
really
falls apart.
impractical.
So yeah, that was a waste of money.
What can you remember the price for it so far?
The first one I got, which was the teeny tiny one, it does 20 soil blocks at once, and that's what you'd start mainly your flower seeds off in more than veg. That must have been about £25.
Right.
So not good. And then the other one, I could have spent more on the next size up from the same website, but I was like, I'm not spending ridiculous amounts here, so I just went to Amazon and brought a cheaper one. So Amazon was better. Amazon was like £5. But the actual legitimate website, I was like, oh, this is quite expensive.
Stephen, you must have years of tools that kind of went by the wayside.
Yeah, I mean, most people will identify with this one straight away. It's those cheap, thin, horrible module trays that won't even last the season. Every year, gardeners go out and buy these blooming things, thinking they're going to do wonders with them, and they just don't last the season. Unless you put soil in it and you never touch it again, they just fall apart. They're useless. It beggars belief that people are still selling these things. It really annoying them. They're generally yellow in colour as well, which is another thing to watch out for. They're just atrocious.
You get that super light green one as
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Seen that.
It is that, isn't it? It's like,
really winds me up.
Horrible.
hideous colour.
I mean, you'll pay a couple of quid for, I think, 5 of them, but I'd rather pay a £5 and go straight to Container-Wise and buy a proper one that I know is going to see me out. It's solid, rigid. It's never going to break, or if it does, it'll just chip a little bit off.
Yeah.
You know, it's never going to fall apart like those flimsy trays. So at the end of the day, you get what you pay for. If it's cheap, there's probably a reason for it.
No, definitely. And like you said, you mentioned them Container-Wise ones, Steve. They're just been the best things ever.
Oh, they've been brilliant. Revolutionised my gardening. They really have.
I don't think they're that dear. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean?
No.
They're certainly not like priced out. You know what I mean? You certainly can get a few to get you going, you know, and then add to it. And we all kind of jumped on the wagon when them patch potatoes were selling like 20 or something. You know what I mean? And they're just a godsend, to be honest. They're just like.
I mean, they look frightening at first when you see the price and you're thinking, well, that's just for one tray. They look a little bit scary with that price, but then once you've used it for a couple of seasons, you think, hang on here, that's why they're that price, because they are that good. And it just means you can pick one tray up and just walk around with it. It's not flopping and falling all over your hands like those green ones are. You know, it's not breaking apart when you take a seedling out of. You can get your finger underneath and push the plant out. What's not to love about them?
Mine, like was what you said, Steve, though, there's still so much of that cheap plastic. You know what I mean? Even when you kind of buy plants from a garden centre, they give you it. You know, if you buy, say, 5 or 6 plants that you kind of carry, they give you these flimsy ones to take. So then it's your responsibility to get rid of them. You know what I mean? Maybe that's why they do it. You know what I mean? It's kind of get rid of it.
Work.
Yeah.
Right.
So one guy on Instagram buys like great big nursery trays, you know, with like hundreds and hundreds of cells for a couple of quid. And they're really heavy duty plastic. And he just cuts them to size. So they fit in normal trays. I saw that. I was like, that's amazing. That's a really good idea.
That is brilliant.
How's he? What's using to cut them, JB? Do you know?
Oh, I can't remember, Tony. It was weeks ago. I'll go and find it actually and post it in the Discord if I can find it. Because let me make a note.
I was going to say, I've been on eBay recently for the idea of trying to find a cheaper version of Container-Wise, because why not? I'm looking for a bargain. And what JB mentioned, those massive ones, there's loads on eBay for really cheap if you cut them up. So that's actually a really good idea.
I wonder if like
Secondhand.
a grinder or even just like a little, like what
Or
you
use a
call it?
hacksaw.
Hacksaw.
Yeah.
Or a jigsaw. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good idea.
As long as you got all the pieces.
Also, if you could use, you know what I mean, I'm an influencer. Can I do a review?
That would be nice. That would be nice container-wise.
I've got a stack of them in the
My
shed somewhere
container-wise.
here as well.
Well, they're not going to now after I've just said I was looking for a cheaper option.
Yeah.
Everyone's just putting a tenner on the price now on eBay, aren't they?
So we have StewTube is saying, my Brassica seedlings' bottom leaves have turned brown orange. What's caused this? Is this normal? And if not, how do I fix it? Stephen.
Probably normal. I mean, quite often the seed leaves and even the next leaves up will die off, and it could be anything from shortage of water or overwatering, or that plant's leaves has just finished. Periodically through the season, you'll see the lower leaves turn brown and green. Just take them off because they're just areas for slugs and problem insects to hide, somewhere for them to hide. Just get rid of them and tidy your bed up. I wouldn't worry too much about that.
Well, I was going to say, I know that's the kind of case where when your brassicas are kind of in and mature and grown, like you always take the bottom leaves off. But I think Stu, you're saying these seedlings. So I don't know. I haven't seen seedlings going brown, orange. I'm not sure what that cause would be.
Yeah, if it's your main, well, he said bottom leaves, but if it's your main leaves on the plant as well, it's generally just a sign of stress. But I do think it's common for the bottom leaves on brassicas to go that kind of color and drop off for sure. It's a thing apparently that the older leaves do much less work on plants biologically, and the new leaves are actually way more active in terms of photosynthesis. And that
if you take those old leaves off, you'll encourage more leaves to grow anyway. So it's all good. But don't go mad though. Don't do it like Tony does. Go in and he strips off the plants.
That. Aesthetically, it looks good. Do you know what I mean?
Aesthetically. Yeah. There we go.
Right, Captain I-Bean is saying, if you had to grow peas on a 4-foot high trellis, what kind of peas would you grow? Thank you. Now, I'm guessing variety, because what I'm into now at the minute is growing like just Marsh too. I'm not sure which ones I've actually got at the moment. I think they're over there on that table. But I find it a bit hassly just growing peas. The family loves them, everyone loves them, but it's a lot of prep.
Nobody wants to pod them.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody wants to pod them, do they? That's it. You can have half a carrier bag and you end up with 2 or 3 portions of peas. And that's why I don't grow them anymore. Peas are so cheap to buy. But I'll grow them on too. And the one I'm growing this year is Carabie de Moussan, which is a French, one of the original Monge 2 varieties. But the one I've grown in previous years
so fluent, isn't he? So fluent.
It was good. That was just right off the tongue, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Oregon Sugar Pod is the one that I normally grow, and that will fill a 4-foot trellis quite easily. So that's Monge 2.
JB, are you a pea man or a Monge 2 man?
Yeah, I've just put my peas in the ground actually. It was a bit of a mission. I was struggling. My dibber wasn't big enough.
You need a bigger girth, son, young man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everyone in the comments was just like, "Why don't you use a bulb planter?" It's like, "Oh yeah, that would have been a good idea." But I tend to do the dwarf varieties just because I find them a bit easier, and I don't like the idea of building a big trellis structure that blows over in the wind. So I've got Early Onward and Calvert Wonder. And they're both kind of dwarfing. Because 4-foot high trellis, that's quite a lot, isn't it? You get quite a lot on there.
So, are you growing peas this year? And if so, what variety have you chosen?
I've got Monge 2. Mine don't sound as fancy as Steve's ones. Whoa. Mine are just called Shiraz, like Shazza.
Shazza.
Mine don't sound as fancy, but I have one called American Wonder I wanted to try, and I think that's just a standard pea. So I'm not really sure, but Mange 2, anything that's less effort, I'll
I
definitely
know
try
that's
grow.
exactly it. Like say Steve hit the nail on the head there. It's just like pod them.
Yeah.
Like all the family will say, "Oh, you're not growing peas." You know what I mean? Well, yeah, I'll grow them if you like gonna sit
Yeah,
there
do it.
with a carrier bag and just shell them. So
Yeah, no.
Well, it was great when I was a kid. We had me and my brother, my mum and my dad, and the grandparents. We'd all be shelling the peas, so you could bring a reasonable amount home, and you'd have Sunday lunch, and we'd have all fresh peas. That's fine if you've got the members of people to do it,
that was before the
I-
war. Before the war, them
Before the
days.
war.
There was no electricity. That's how that was a day's fun in them days, wasn't it? Down Liverpool, that was a day's fun.
We're up
Shelling
till 2 in the
peas.
morning, one candle in the middle of the table.
Bit of arson. Pop home for some peas.
Fire starting.
Oh dear.
We have hit the top of the hour there, 5 to 8. So, tips of the week. I'm going to jump straight to Sophie, who looks like she has forgot all about the tip of the week.
I did forget about the tip of the week.
Shall I let you go to Chat GTP and just say tips for Abel? JB,
Absolutely.
have you got a tip of the week?
Yeah, so mine is maybe a slightly somber one. But,
Let's bring the party down.
Yeah, well, Gardner Scott just released a really good video that is well worth people going and taking a look at about his battle with skin cancer. And it's essentially just a reminder, we're coming into spring, and it's still that sort of time where the sun can really catch you out. I know it catches me out. I'm relatively young, a little bit complacent, but I've stored some sun cream at the allotment now for when I forget. And yeah, just a reminder to cover up, wear a big hat, wear long sleeves or lots and lots of SPF, because you spend a lot of time out in the sun gardening, and it's very easy to be complacent with it and let it catch up with you. So don't forget your sun cream.
Are you with the younger generation, JB? Are you kind of, because I know it's in, my wife's always leaving out, you can kind of tell there that the moisturizer, and you've got like stuff. Are you a moisturizer guy? Do you put that on anyways?
I do moisturize. Yeah, I do moisturize the face.
Because that's got it in as well. Most of the moisturizers have got it in.
Yeah, the stuff I have now has a SPF for winter.
Modern man. So yeah, a wise tip there, JB. Wise tip indeed. Look at yourselves. Butter, yes, lard. Stephen, have you got your tip of the week, sir?
I have indeed. We've all spent a winter, or most of us have spent a winter, looking after your plots, digging up weeds, repairing this, that, and the other, digging beds over. So it all comes under sort of winter maintenance. But one thing that many gardeners forget until there's a problem with them is all the locks or hinges or door handles that are on your plot. So just go and give them an oil. Last year, I snapped a key in a padlock because it wasn't working properly. A hinge has broken off one of my polytunnel doors because that wasn't opening properly. So do that. And don't forget your greenhouses, your auto vents up the top, and clean the runners where your doors go up and down. So it's just little maintenance jobs that you might have forgotten. Some people are good and remember them every year. I didn't last year.
Well done.
What
well,
do you
thank
use,
you.
Steve? Sorry to jump in, Tony.
No,
Because a lot of people use
3-in-1 oil.
WD-40, right? But you're not meant to use that. Is that correct?
I use 3-in-1 oil.
3-in-1.
So
Interesting.
it's just 3-in-1. It's in a little can about this big. I've had it for about 10, 15 years. Just turn the padlock on its side, a couple of drops in the where you put the key in, and just let it run around. Just keep shaking it around.
I must admit, I'm a WD-40 man, JB. I've never heard why not use that?
I think it's meant to I don't think it's actually a lubricant for a lot of things, apparently. Is that maybe that's one of those things?
I thought it was the
completely
lubricant.
incorrect.
I thought it was the kind of...
I think it's bad for it gums up certain things like locks. I don't know. That might have just been something some bloke told me. Listen to it too much. I'll be looking at the chat to see what everyone says.
Yeah, do that.
Well, listen, a big thank you for turning up. Sorry we weren't here last week there. We had a little break off, but we're back now, roaring to go. Stephen, JB, Soth, thank you very much. See you
Thank you, Tony.
week. Take good care. To the
Thanks
bit,
all.
everyone.
Cheers all. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.